Growing up, I wasn't the type to have many friends. I had friends that I used to go fishing with, or people that I played sports with, but we were never good friends. It was only at university that I made real friends. Grant and I studied together, me in mechanical and civil engineering. The Grant was in the engineering geology stream. We met not through study, but through rugby. We both played for the university team, him as a giant castle and me as a flanker. Our friendship began during a game that turned into a fight. It started when the enemy's post swung at Grant and I grabbed him, pulling him away from Grant and lightly hitting him on the chin. Well, that's when the fight happened. This is where it all started. For newbies and oldies alike, flying fists and bodies everywhere. After the game, Grant came up, put his monster hand on my shoulder, and thanked me for standing up for him. In the club rooms later, we got drunk and completely wrote ourselves off. This was the beginning of a very close friendship that continued afterwards. After graduating from university, I took the easy route by taking a position in Wellington with the Department of Works as a road and bridge engineer. I say it was easy because it meant that I would become a government employee with all the benefits that entailed. Grant, on the other hand, decided to complete his degree and go abroad, ending up in South Africa, where he made a real breakthrough in diamond mining. I toiled like a civil, slowly climbing the career ladder. Grant and I were complete opposites. He is a dynamic earner, and I am a calmer one, trudging towards retirement. I met the love of my life, Ashley Godin, at a rugby club awards ceremony. The club had a women's netball team and sometimes participated in events such as prize giving. Ashley, who had recently arrived in Wellington to take up a position in the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research as a research assistant, joined the netball team to make friends. I spotted her from across the room and was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. She was there with a group of her friends having a great time. I managed to slip into her circle and we ended up dancing. This was the beginning of a very short, heated courtship. Ashley was an incredibly outgoing, friendly person. They say opposites attract. Well, that's it in a nutshell. We married 12 months later and began our life together. It was a typical marriage. We both worked long, tedious hours, busting our ass trying to put together a deposit for our first home. We chose a house in one of Wellington's seaside suburbs, Leal Bay, where our children Sylvia and Clive were born. We had barely moved in when Grant unexpectedly returned from South Africa, bringing with him his gorgeous bride, Saskia. He became rich and decided to return to New Zealand and put his wealth to good use. While they were looking for a suitable house, they stayed with us. Luckily, they quickly found him next door in Island Bay. Saskia and Ashley became friends and were inseparable. Grant bought a small engineering business specializing in the repair of earth-moving equipment, and being Grant, he turned this young business into a real gold mine. Saskia became pregnant with her first and only child. Gradually, our children grew up and wanted a little more independence, and we decided to add an extension to the house, as the house was getting a bit crowded. When Grant found out, he dove headfirst into helping, deciding to lend a hand. We spent hours building this extension. Every weekend and late into the night after work, we worked long and hard, although we always ended up with a few beers. I learned a lot from him. It was a real team effort that further strengthened our friendship. I learned a lot about Grant. He definitely liked being the boss. It was in his nature, and I didn't mind as long as he made the right decisions. I also realized that we made a good team, which I suppose shouldn't have surprised me. Around the same time, Saskia found a job selling real estate, but Grant quickly lost interest in his business. He had done all the hard work bringing the failed business back to life, but now that it was running successfully, he was tired of it. Selling the business on the market took less than a month and brought a stunning profit. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little jealous of him. He worked hard and deserved it. He decided he needed a change and returned to mining. He took some contract work in Australia, which Saskia didn't like at all. She liked everything here and didn't want him to leave. As a result, she spent a lot of time in our house, crying into Ashley's vest. He had been gone for months. Saskia's growing frustration with the state of affairs meant that if he was going to save his marriage to her, he would have to return home. Not only did he return, but he returned with a plan. He came home with a burning desire to become a winemaker. Saskia was stunned, but since he had a task ahead of him, it didn't take him long to gain her support. They put their house up for sale, and since Saskia took over the business, it sold quickly and they moved away. It was surprising when he took the family to Otago. The region had no history of grape growing. If he had chosen Marlborough, I would have thought it made sense, but not central Otago. However, if Grant had an idea fixed in his head, no arguments influenced him. He attracted a piece of land blindly. They left with plans to plant the first grapes in central Otago. With his attitude and plan in place, either way, this was to be his start in setting the world on fire and becoming a world-class winemaker. It became his dream, and like everything he did, he threw himself into it with great pleasure. He was brave, fearless. This was something new for the region, as it was not a famous wine region, but he had a dream and nothing could stand in his way. Given his goal and desire to never give up, everything was always an undoubted success. What was shocking was a sneaky phone call asking if I could spare some time to come and help him with the construction process. I chuckled to myself. He may have had a plan, but he still needed help. His ego was bruised from having to ask for it. A quick chat with Ashley, and we took the kids on a 6-week holiday over Christmas so I could help him design and build the house. It was 6 weeks of fun. The children all got along great, and Grant and Saskia, they were some kind of unofficial parents. It was hard work. We busted our ass again and started working on the house, planning and laying the foundations. In the evenings, when it got dark, we planted grapes. My main mission was to install a wind-driven irrigation system. This was a new approach to a real problem. Over the next year, I returned several times to help with the construction. In the end, he got exactly what he wanted: a huge, rambling house built from local timber and stone. It was a huge, big monster for the place that stood out. Even in this area, the entrance was pulled straight out of a home and garden magazine. Large, powerful stone columns at the front, monstrous, oversized doors opening into a wide foyer. It could easily be mistaken for a house from a Hollywood movie. His plan was not only to make this vineyard successful, he wanted it to become a family home where visitors could come, taste the wine in comfort, tour the vineyards, and see how the wine is made. We lost touch for a couple of years while he focused on building his business and becoming a world-class winemaker. We raised the kids, and Ashley went back to work. Work, children, and their needs. This took up all of our time, which meant we didn't see Grant and Saskia for a long time. We all got together when our daughter Sylvia went to Lincoln University in Canterbury. Knows why she decided to go into farming, but here you go. Clive was the next to leave the nest, followed by Glenn, their son. Saskia acted like a mother hen and did a great job of looking after Sylvia for us. Knows how many hours she spent on the road, picking her up from school and ferrying her back and forth so she could spend weekends at their house. And we will always be grateful that she made it through that period without a scratch. When I turned 50, Ashley decided to throw a big party, and of course Grant and Saskia came to stay. It was a kind of joyful reunion, and led to us spending time together and holidays in each other's houses, although theirs was, of course, much more luxurious than ours. Ashley kind of fell in love with it, and it ensured that we visited more often. Soon after that, everything turned to Saskia. Oh, sweet Saskia. She was a wild little thing and loved to drive. She had a little Triumph Spitfire that really suited her personality. She was a crazy racer. I hated going anywhere with her because she was never happy unless her foot was pressing on the floor. The only thing I feared was when she picked up Sylvia, although she assured me that they never drove the car fast. But it was a hell of a lot different. When she picked me up, she took great pleasure in scaring the out of me. Looking back, everything seems inevitable. But this does not negate the tragedy. One day, while flying along the winding, windy country roads of central Otago, she suffered a fatal accident. She was lucky that she died quickly. After the accident hit him, Grant was in complete disarray as he told us the news over the phone. We jumped on a plane and immediately flew to them. When we got there, he was drunk and crying. Ashley hugged him comfortingly. He poured me a drink and we sat on the veranda and got drunk. Ashley spent the entire night cleaning and preparing for the crazy crowds expected tomorrow. When I finally crawled into bed, Ashley was still quietly sobbing. "Oh my, what a horror, honey. He's not coping well. Tomorrow you have to be strong. You have to take control." The day started with Ashley focusing on cooking and getting ready for visitors. I went to the police station and arranged for the car to be removed and disposed of. Jesus, what a piece of junk. Everything was trashed beyond recognition. I found a specialist car salvage company that was interested enough to pick up the remains. Returning to the house, I saw Ashley serving food to a steady stream of guests who wanted to convey condolences and promises of help to Grant. He wasn't completely catatonic, but he was barely functioning. That night, after everyone left, it was just Grant, his son, Glenn, and us. Ashley was preparing dinner, but everything was grim. We tried to get Grant to open up and talk, but he was lost in spirit, completely lost in his overwhelming grief. This was a side of him we never saw, a testament to how much he loved her. He stopped our constant attempts to get him to talk about what he was going to do and walked away, leaving the table early, leaving us alone. His son was very worried. He studied architecture at Massey University in Hamilton and was immersed in his studies. He couldn't afford too much free time. The funeral was a huge affair. Grant certainly made an impact on the local community. He was always a generous person, the type of guy who would give the shirt off his back. In the days following the funeral, he became sullen and gloomy, especially after his son left to return to university. Ashley and I were worried it was not just grief, but depression in its worst form. We decided it would be best for him to come back to Wellington and stay with us for a while. It wasn't easy convincing him, and it took a lot of effort, but eventually Ashley, in her mother-hen mode, convinced him that it made sense. So, after we arranged for one of the vineyard workers to take over, Grant flew us back to Wellington. It was incredibly sad to see him like this. He was always positive and assertive, but here he barely moved around the house, and Ashley was waiting for him faithfully. As much as I loved him, he drove me crazy. I could see that Ashley wanted to take care of him, but she too was soon tired. We both worked, and after work we came home to a mess and nothing had been done. I tried to talk to him, but it was hard. I didn't want to offend him. I just wanted him to get his head out of his ass and do something. 2 weeks passed, and finally, when we arrived home, we found him packing his things. It was like a switch had been flipped, and to this day I don't know what made him. But he hugged us both and chatted happily. "Guys, thanks for looking after me, but I need to get back to work. If I sit here any longer, I'll go crazy." Ashley and I both practically danced with joy after we dropped him off at the airport. It was wonderful. When we got home, there was no more mess, and Ashley in particular was glad that she didn't have to run after him anymore. Ashley called and talked to him every evening, and he seemed to be illuminated when he returned to inspiring his vineyard and mountains of work. The following month was a long weekend, and Ashley suggested we fly out for a quick visit. We both took extra days off and flew. The weather was stunning as we approached the vineyard, with stunning scenery throughout the region with an alpine backdrop and clear blue skies. It was all truly breathtaking, and this day was one of those. Ash shook her head in disbelief, as she often did along the way. "My dear, this is impressive, isn't it?" Grant greeted us both with a warm hug, but when we walked inside, Ashley nearly fell over. The place was packed. There are dishes piled up in the kitchen, food scraps everywhere, and it looks like he's done absolutely nothing around the house since he got back. He apologized, muttering that he was busy in the vineyard. Ashley rolled up her sleeves and got to work. I had no choice but to help her. Grant, citing the need to do something, disappeared. The moment he walked out the door, Ashley jumped into my arms. "There's not a single square centimeter on the bench that's empty, and the floor is sticky." I nodded. "This is disgusting. How can he live like this?" She shrugged. "I don't understand anything. He's never been like this. I mean, I understand that he's grieving, but this is all terrible." It took the rest of the day to get it relatively clean. Grant returned just before dinner and didn't even say thank you, as if nothing had happened. He chatted during lunch, but it was strange that he kept going back to what he had told us just a few minutes ago. Ashley and I kept looking at each other, wondering what was happening. We left on Monday afternoon, and he cried into Ashley's vest and hugged me. "I'll miss you both," he muttered. At home, Ashley was more worried than ever. She called him every evening, but he was just as distant and incoherent. Ashley thought he was drinking. On Thursday night, I came home a little later than usual to find Ashley crying like never before, looking scared and in deep shock. "Darling, what happened?" My first thought was, "Children, are they all right?" She looked at me through tears. "This is Grant. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor." She burst into even more desperate. "He only has 6 months to live." I plopped down on the chair next to her, and she hugged me. "What should we do?" she asked. "Darling, there is nothing we can do. He can come back and live with us, and we can try to take care of him." She nodded with tears. "That's what I said, but you know what a stubborn bastard he is." He refused. "Perhaps you can convince him?" Later I called him and invited him to stay with us. "No, sorry mate, but that won't happen. I need to be here to finish the vineyard. There are important things I need to do." I tried to convince him otherwise, but he wasn't going to be convinced. We talked a little, but I didn't know what to say. I mean, Jesus. What do you say to someone who's facing a death sentence? In the end, I was glad to give the phone to Ashley. At lunch, we were both depressed. Neither Ashley nor I really knew what to say. The next night, when Ashley handed me the phone, I brushed it off and she looked angry as she continued the conversation. After she hung up, she snapped, "Why didn't you talk to him? He needs you more than ever." "Because I don't know what to tell him. I think we need to go back and see if he's okay. We can't just abandon him in his time of need." I nodded. "Yes, good, but it will be hard work if everything is like last time." We hugged each other for comfort. It was the strangest feeling. We had been friends for so long and shared so much, and now I couldn't find the words to say them to him. It's a shame, but nothing seems to fit. Of course, when we got to Grant's house, everything was the same as last time. The lawns weren't mowed. There was inside. There were piles of dirty dishes everywhere that almost reached the ceiling. Ashley cried, but when Grant arrived from the farm, the hugging began. At least it was easier this way. I dusted off the lawnmower and began trying to get the lawns and garden in order. Ashley was up to her elbows in dishwasher water, and Grant wandered around, looking as if nothing had happened. He felt no shame about the state of the house. At dinner that night, we tried unsuccessfully to get him to come back to our house, but he was unwilling, and no amount of coercion or argument could change his mind. The next day, I wandered with Grant on a tour of the vineyard, as he pointed out all the improvements and changes. I had a moment to talk to his foreman, and it was obvious that he was the one who was leading all the changes and running the place. And Grant, despite his good intentions, was just getting in the way. The flight home was silent except for Ashley to say, "Darling, you can't leave him like this. He can't take care of himself, he'll hurt himself." Well, he seems to be coping. We can't do anything unless we prove he's insane. But he's not crazy. Honey, he needs help. I was puzzled by what this led to. Honey, this is his life. We just have to be there for him when he needs our help. He needs us now, she said angrily. I don't understand you. He's your best friend, for God's sake. He needs you, and we have to find a way to help. She leaned back in her seat and crossed her arms tightly, just like she always did when she was angry. From my own experience, I knew that it was better not to say anything in such cases. Tuesday night I came home to find Ashley had prepared a big dinner, and that night we made passionate love before she pressed her hot body tightly against mine. Wednesday night was a repeat, except this time we made love twice, after which it was very tender. Thursday night, another follow-up session. 3 nights in a row. It's been a long time since we've been this in love. There was another big dinner on Friday night, and in bed Ashley exhausted us both with her passion, and it was only after we hugged that I got the shock. "Rob, I want us to take a few days off and stay with Grant and help him. He only has a few months left." I spoke to my management and they agreed to give me 6 months off. I don't have that many vacation days, so I'll have to take 1 month without pay. Stunned and confused, I asked, "What?" "Jesus, Ashley, this is what all the sex was about." She grinned an evil little grin. "Shouldn't I have done this? Rob, this is our best friend and you've seen what he's like. He can't take care of himself. and he has no one to lean on. Darling, this is what needs to be done. We must help. She pressed herself closer to me. Come on, my love. You know it's right. You have a long vacation, and we can do this. Ashley, there are government agencies and services. If they don't help, I'm sure he could afford a 24/7 caregiver. Let me talk to him a little, and I'm sure we can work things out somehow. Shaking her head, she kissed my bare shoulder. What? That wouldn't be right, would it? I don't want some stranger looking after him, not when we can do it. What would Saskia say? No, Rob. This is our responsibility. Ash, I can't. We have too much going on at work. I'm being groomed for a promotion, and if I leave now, I'll be fired. Oh, for sake, we don't need money. The one we're talking about is our friend. Honey, he doesn't expect this from us. He's a tough nut to... Once he gets to the stage where he can't take care of himself, then we can start fussing. She shook her head, and it was obvious that she was angry. You're making me sad. Where did the caring, loving guy I married go? Where did this callous I live with come from? I understand that you want to help, Ash, but we can't. The next few days were slightly frosty, but on the third day the fiery passionate ex returned with a vengeance, and as the weekend approached I was even tearied. On free day evening everything became clear. After we made love and clung to each other in post-coital bliss, she attacked me. Darling, I decided that if you don't come to help, I'll go alone. Ash, you can't. I need you here too, you know. You're a big boy. You can take care of yourself, and he's dying for God's sake. He'll be gone forever soon. Realizing that I was fighting a losing battle and recognizing that it was the right thing to do, I asked it, so what period are we talking about? Days or weeks? She hugged my neck and kissed me on the lips. Well, I don't know how quickly he'll start to lose control or how long it will take before he can't stay home alone, but I'll stay until he gets taken to the hospital. Jesus, Ashley. You know this could take months. She nodded. I know, dear. But what else can be done? Leaning back, I whispered, Ashley, I don't know how long it will be before you come home. Until the end, I think. So you won't even come home to visit? The sad look in her eyes gave me the answer. Rob, you can come every weekend or maybe every other weekend. You don't have to, just leave it all to me. In the morning, we made love again before I took her to the airport. Call me, I whispered as we hugged for the last time. She kissed me lightly. Of course. Every evening. With that, she flew away. At home, I walked around lost. No matter how much I moaned for her, this would be the first time in our married life that we were ever apart. I was mowing the lawn and wondering what to take for dinner. Oh, one good thing, at least I could take whatever I wanted. I opened a beer and relaxed in the living room. Later that evening, Ashley called and Grant was crying into the phone. Thanks, buddy. That means so much to me. Ashley picked up the phone again and whispered, Rob. He was so happy when he saw me, he instantly brightened up. We did the right thing. Now he is more alive than I have ever seen him in a long time. What could I say except one thing? This is good news. During the first week, the calls were regular and she begged me to come over the weekend. But with my job, I couldn't do it. I had to work on Saturday as well. The next week she called every evening, but no longer begged me to come and visit. The next week the calls decreased and they seemed forced, as if she was afraid to talk to me, and I felt that everything was wrong. By the end of week 4, I decided that I needed to figure out what the hell was going on. I booked a flight for the weekend, but didn't say anything, deciding to surprise them. It was a pleasant day in central Otago as I drove up to Grant's house. All I hoped was that his condition hadn't worsened too much, and that Ashley was okay. When I stopped in front of the house, I was amazed at how nice everything looked. The gardens were well maintained. The lawns were trimmed and the property looked neat. Ashley was clearly very busy. I entered, shouting loudly, Ashley, are you here? She walked out of the kitchen, looking completely stunned. Rob, what are you doing here? Surprised by her indifference, I muttered, Jesus, do I need an excuse to visit my wife already? She hesitantly approached me, hugging me, and the kiss melted all my fears. No, of course not, you devil, but you should have called. We could meet you at the airport and save on renting a car. Grant came in from outside. The look on his face surprised me. He wasn't happy to see me, although he looked good, really good. "Hey, buddy," he said, extending his hand. I pushed his hand away and we hugged as only male friends can. "You look good," I muttered. "This must be good food." He laughed. "The job is programmed. I will make tea." I took my bag and headed into the hallway. I need to change clothes. I assume we're in the main guest room as usual? Ashley and Grant looked at each other strangely as I walked across the hall to the guest room, which was empty. Nothing. No clothes, no bags, nothing. This room has not been used for a very long time. I turned and looked towards the living room where Ash and Grant stood side by side, looking at me. I walked back into the room, leaving my bag in the doorway, and walked into the master bedroom, where all of Ashley's clothes were. Her bags, open and empty, her shoes, like she did at home, and the bed was completely made up, completely uncharacteristic for Ash, unless it was used very recently. When I turned to leave, Ashley stood staring at me. "Honey, let me explain. Let's put your bag in the guest room and we can all sit and talk." She looked nervous, excited, and perhaps even scared. I felt weak, my heart was pounding in my chest, and my breathing suddenly became labored. I walked past her, pushing her aside, picked up my bag, heading towards the exit, and Ashley ran after me. "Rob, please let me explain. Please, honey, stop. Rob, you have to let me speak." I continued walking straight through the living room back to my car. Ashley screamed, "Rob, please wait, don't shy away." "Please stop, let's talk," she shouted angrily. "Rob, listen to me, please. For God's sake, let me explain." Grant came up. "Buddy, let's not do anything rash." I swung and threw a wild punch. Ashley looked first at me, then at him, before leaning down to see if he was okay. By then, I had thrown my bag into the back seat and got in, slamming the door angrily. Ashley ran up and grabbed me. "Rob, please don't leave, not like that. Let's go back inside and talk." I spat out angrily. "Where will I sleep? More precisely, where will you sleep?" She winced in pain. "With you, silly. You are my husband." "Does it look like this now?" I started the car, crunching into gear. "It seems to me that now he is your husband." Before leaving, I hissed, "Ashley, I'm giving you a chance. If you're home in Wellington by Monday, I'll try to forget this madness ever happened. But if you're not there, I promise you, here and now, our marriage will end, and you can stay here as long as you want." I rushed forward, hitting both of them with stones from under the wheels, increasing speed and silently cursing. For God's sake, they lived as husband and wife, shared a bed, and obviously had sex. Arriving at the airport, it cost me a fortune to change my ticket. Back home, the reality of the situation hit me. My parting shot was to suggest that I would forgive her, but as I sat in the living room, staring blankly into space, I wondered, if she came back, would I be able to forgive? On Sunday afternoon, I received a call from Ashley. "Rob, can we breathe and talk? Please give me a chance. Let me explain what happened." "Come on, explain. Tell me why. My wife is having sex with another man. Tell me why you are cohabiting with him as husband and wife, while I live here alone." "Darling, that's not true," I interrupted before she could continue. "So, you don't share a bed?" There was a slow pause. "Yes, we share a bed, but it's not what you think. You don't have sex?" Silence returned, and we listened to each other's breathing before she whispered, "Yes, we have sex, but—" I intervened again. "Then, everything is as I thought. You live together." "Rob, let me explain. He was so lonely and so sad. You know how much he loves Saskia. I didn't come here for this, it just happened. It all started with a comforting kiss, and then it got out of control. You can say that as much as you want. I made you an offer, and it still stands. If you're home tomorrow, I'm ready to try to forgive you." I heard her sigh. "Thank you, Rob. That's why I love you. But I can't. Not now. You've seen how positive he is now that he has a little joy in his life. I can't just leave. My love, He doesn't have much longer to live, and then I'll come home and we can put this behind us. I think you misunderstood me. This is the only offer, Ashley. I won't wait. Either you're here tomorrow or I'm filing for divorce. That's all. The sobbing began. Rob, he has no one. We are all he has. You're wrong. All he has is you. To me, he's dead. You don't think so. She jumped up sharply. He's your best friend. You won't leave him when he needs you. Ashley, listen to me. He's already dead to me. If you are not at home tomorrow, I will file for divorce. This is not a threat. This is a promise. So what? Our marriage means less than that. Everything we've been through? And you'll just throw away 25 years? No. Not me, Ashley. This is your role, not mine. If it all ends like this, then it will be on your conscience. All I could hear was her sobbing. What were you thinking, Ashley? Jesus, what the hell were you thinking? She burst into hysterics. I don't know, Rob. I just wanted to make his last days happy. I just wanted to make his last days happy. Come home and we can try to get through this. I promise I will try to forgive. I'm sorry, Rob, but I can't do this. I hope you'll forgive me because I love you and I can't imagine my life without you. Well, you better get used to it, because if you're not here tomorrow, we'll definitely end up. The next few days passed slowly. Work was impossible. I wasted time. But I fought. Staying at home would have been worse. At night, the house seemed cold and my life felt empty. Ashley called several times and once gave the phone to Grant, but the minute I heard his voice, I hung up. My daughter called me to tell me how proud she was of her mom and that it was a selfless act to go and look after him. She compared her to Mother Teresa or Florence Nightingale. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth, but she couldn't understand when I told her to shut up because I didn't want to listen. Although that wasn't the only thing she wanted to tell me, she had another surprise. She got engaged and wanted to know if we could make it to her party, which was in a month. I, of course, agreed and offered to pay, which made her very happy. What didn't make her happy was when she asked what I thought about setting her up at Grant's Vineyard. Her mother must have already talked to her and made an offer, which I immediately rejected. Sylvie, the answer is no. I'll find somewhere better. She seemed embarrassed. Why, Dad? What could be better? That would be great. My anger made me snap. Sylvie, if you organize it there, I will not participate and I will not pay. She seemed surprised. But it was Mom's idea. She said Uncle Grant might be there. Do what you want, Sylvie. But once you organize it there, you will do everything without me. There was a pause while she tried to collect her thoughts. She fell silent, saying that she would talk to her mother and call back. Of course, less than an hour passed when Ashley called. Darling, Sylvie just said something about how you don't want to have the engagement party here. That's true, I spat. She sighed. Darling, please don't be a... It makes sense to hold the party here. Grant is getting worse and he won't be able to travel. Please, I beg you not to make things harsher than they need to be. What the hell, Ashley? I confirm my claims. If she wants to listen to you, I won't be there and I won't pay. Darling, Grant has already offered to pay as his gift. If we arrange everything here, it won't cost a cent. Sorry, but if you want me to be there, she won't be there. And he won't pay for my daughter's engagement. Tell him to go wild. Luckily, after many phone calls, my daughter realized something was going on and reluctantly agreed to take the party elsewhere. Through an old rugby assistant, I was able to secure a position in Hamner Springs. Sylvie was as happy as I was when I told her the news. It would be expensive, but I didn't care. It was also the push I needed to begin the divorce process. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were finalized and posted at the courthouse. Then they waited for Ashley's response, where the documents were sent by registered mail. If she doesn't contest, then all she has to do is sign and return, and the paperwork will be filed with the court. What the hell? That was all I heard when I picked up the phone. Hi, Ashley. It's nice to hear your voice. Rob, what the hell is going on? It's simple, Ashley. I assume you're talking about divorce. If you sign the papers and mail them, we can file for divorce and it will be finalized in 6 months. Rob, no. Should I beg? Please don't do this. We can get through this. Once I get home, you'll see it's all nonsense. Oh, for sake, Ashley, don't be funny. I won't wait while you play happy family with the idiot. All I want is for you to sign the papers so we can both move forward. No, I refuse. I don't want this and I won't sign. Then send them back with a note that you dispute. Either way, we will be legally separated by the end of the month. Dear, don't rush. Sylvie's engagement will be in 6 weeks. Can't we wait for her? No, I won't wait. Everything is filed in court. Whether you contest or not, we will be legally separated. You can fight the divorce, but when the judge finds out that you have been living with another man for 3 months, I don't think you'll have a chance. I don't live with him. I'm caring for a dying friend. Nursing doesn't require bed sharing or sex. You can be a nasty bastard whenever you want. I spent most of my free time helping plan Sylvia's engagement party, and everything was going well until she sent me the guest list and Grant's name was on it. This caused another unpleasant call when I informed her that he was not welcome. She cried when I laid out my rules. Yes, this caused another nasty call between Ashley and me. She accused me of being cruel, reminding me that Grant was Sylvie's godfather and had the right to be there. For me, this was the last straw, and I growled, "No, while he sleeps with you, he won't be here." The engagement was a great success for everyone except Ashley. She came, but alone. We sat at opposite ends of the table for most of the evening. When the party got going and the band started playing, Sylvie nudged me. "Dad, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom, but you need to put everything aside tonight. I'm begging you, don't ruin my party." I hugged her and kissed her. "Okay, honey, I'll behave." "Okay, then go and dance with Mom. She looks like she's carrying the weight of the world all by herself." She said poor old Uncle Grant was very sick. When she pushed me, I walked across the hall, feeling as if thousands of eyes were looking at me. I gave her my hand and led her to the dance floor. While we serenely glided along the floor, she melted in my arms. "Oh, Rob, it feels so good to be in your arms. Thank you for asking me to dance." "Okay. How are things going?" I asked. "Okay, I guess, but Grant," I cut. "I don't want to hear about him, and I don't even want to hear his name." She tensed at my angry retort, but as we slid, she pressed herself close to me, and we continued to dance in silence. After a couple of songs, she sighed. "Rob, I want to talk to you. We need to clear things up." "Not tonight," Sylvie has already growled at me. "If you're still here tomorrow, maybe we can find somewhere private." She agreed. It felt so good to hold her in my arms. It just felt right. "Where did you stay for the night?" I quickly glanced at her. "To Royal, in the city. I could come and spend the night with you," she whispered, her teeth nipping at my ear. "No, thank you, Ashley. I don't sleep with other men's wives." "Rob, please don't start. Is it bad to spend the night together? I love you and I want you." "What's the matter? Is Grant so sick that he can't satisfy you?" She pushed me away. "You're a disgusting bastard. I just wanted to spend some time with you. But if you must know, Grant only has a few weeks left. Tell me where he will be buried so I can come and pee on his grave." The cold, evil look she gave me would have frozen the fires of hell. As promised, we met at the pub the next day. I had already ordered a glass of wine for her when she came in. I didn't get up when she approached the table. "What do you want to talk about, Ashley?" "As I said last night, Grant will be gone in a week or two. I wanted to ask you to come and see him." "He wants to talk to you." "Oh yes, which bedroom will I be in?" "Rob, please come. This is important. You are his best friend." "No, Ashley, he lost that right the night he went to bed with you. He is no longer my friend, and no, I will not see him. You can tell him that I hope his death will be slow and painful to make up for my pain over the last 6 months." A frown covered her face. "Please, Rob, just give him a chance. He needs to talk to you." "Well, I don't want to hear anything from him. Look, let's get on with the important stuff. I want to put my house on the market. We both need somewhere to live. Darling, this is part of what Grant wants to talk to you about. Please come and spend a few days in the vineyard and listen to what he has to say. All I want is your consent to the sale. If you think you can buy my share, we can pay it off. But if you can't find the money, we need to sell. I have an agent who has appraised it, and they are ready to list it for sale. Rob, we don't need to do this. At least, give me a chance to do it right. Give me a chance to convince you. We cannot do this if we live separately. Sorry, Ashley, but I gave you a chance, and you turned your nose up. You know I couldn't leave him like this, dear. He had a smile on his face. He was enjoying his last days and will die soon. Just give us a chance. Let me see. If I can't change your mind, or if you find that you can't forgive me, we can at least say we tried, but it seems like you just gave up on me. Gritting my teeth, I muttered, "Should I sell the house, or do you want to keep it?" Irritated, she slammed her hands on the table, drawing fearful glances from all over the room. Sell this thing. If you're ready to just end it all, then sell it. I nodded. Okay, I'll tell the agents we work with and send you the documents by mail. When tears began to fall, she sniffled. Do you still love me? Our marriage was so beautiful, and I never doubted your love. Even through it all, I always thought you still loved me. I love you, and probably always will, but you decided to give this love to another man. I'm sorry, Ashley, but it depends on you. Why can't we fight for our marriage? If you love me like you say, why can't we try? Her hand squeezed mine tighter. Please, Rob, think about the children. What will they say? What will we tell them? I don't know about you, but I'll tell them the truth. She dropped my hand like a hot potato. No, Rob, please don't do this. They'll hate me. I won't lie to you, Ashley. You dug yourself a hole, and now you're in it. I was surprised how quickly the house sold, but I also received another shock. The Ministry of Labor was privatized, and as part of the transformation, we employees received compensation for voluntary redundancy. My payout was very tempting because of my long service with them, and I walked away with over $500,000, so, along with the proceeds from the sale of the house, I could very well become semi-retired while working part-time. Grant died the day after the sale. My son asked if we could go to the funeral together and was stunned when I told him I wasn't going to. Dad, what the hell is going on? Everything had been strange since his mother left to look after him. Okay, son, the truth is that your mother and Grant had an affair. They lived as husband and wife, so I won't go. Dad, are you sure? Yes, I caught them doing this. Well, thanks for at least being honest. What do you want me to do? Son, this argument is not for you. You do what your conscience dictates. My daughter begged me to come, and it was difficult for me to compare the conversation with her to the one I had with Clive, but I did not expect her anger. Dad, you have to go. Mom has lost her head. She is your wife. She became hysterical when I said, not for long. Ashley called, begging and crying, Rob, you are a cruel, heartless bastard. Why did you tell the children? Because they forced me to be the bad guy. They were mad at me for not going to the funeral, so I explained why. Now they hate me. Sylvie shouted at me. Clive called me very offensive names. Sorry, Ash, but you were the one who dug the hole. Now get out of it yourself. She was sobbing quietly. At least come to the funeral. Please come. I can't go through this without you. My answer was short. Hell no. Clive surprised me by not going either, and apparently he was having a heated conversation with his mother and sister. After the sale went through, I had nowhere to live, and I began looking for a new home. I wanted a small house on the Kapiti coast. While Ashley was at Grant's funeral, I signed the papers and moved in the following week. Because it was a summer home, coupled with the fact that it was for cash and was vacant, taking ownership meant I could move in immediately. I received an invitation from the city notary to attend the reading of Grant's will, but I refused. And he said, Mr. Thomas, it would be in your best interests to attend. You have been bequeathed quite a significant amount of money. I laughed out loud. I don't want his money. I'm not his pimp. Before the conversation started again, I hung up. But when I thought about it, I wanted to hurt him. And the only thing I could think of was to donate everything to the church. Grant was a strict atheist, and I knew he hated it. A quick phone call to the lawyers, and I arranged for the money bequeathed to me to be given in his name to a local church. The lawyer didn't care, but I knew someone who didn't. It didn't take long before Ashley called and angrily spat out, Why, Rob? You know how he felt about religion? He would be angry if he found out. Why didn't you just give it all back? We could have used it in the vineyard, or Glenn could have used it. I do not care, I growled and hung up. Clive arrived to help me move into a new house. He surprised me by bringing his friend Alicia, a very pretty young girl. We had a great weekend, swimming and barbecuing. I was really amazed at his choice of girl. Unlike some of the fifas he was hanging out with, she was really nice, she had a brain, and we had a really nice chat. In my situation, you can go two ways. Complain about life and become bitter and stressed out, or continue to live. I chose the latter, focusing on living a good life. Working from a spare bedroom, I began building my business as a consulting engineer. Finding a job was fairly easy. I wasn't the only civil engineer to get laid off, and it created a hole that I was happy to fill at more than double the salary of my old level. Within a month, I had more work than I could handle. Life began to become easier and the oppressive anger disappeared. A rather persistent knock on the front door pulled me away from the rugby I was watching on TV. When I opened it, Ashley stood there, looking more radiant and beautiful than I remembered. "Can I come in?" she asked. I opened the door. I drank beer while watching the game while having sandwiches for dinner. "What do you want, Ashley?" "I want to talk. See if we can somehow get past all the anger and bitterness, Rob. I still love you and want to be in your life." Looking into her deep green eyes, all I saw was pain. "I don't think so, Ash. I once offered you a chance at redemption, and you turned me down. What should I have done?" "He was dying. Our best friend in the whole world was dying. I thought that once you calm it down, you would see that it was all nothing, that we could get through this. If you had stayed there with me from the very beginning like I asked, this wouldn't have happened. Yes, and if you had stayed with me as I asked, this wouldn't have happened either." She sighed. "Rob, he was our friend. This only makes the situation worse. Why can't you understand this? For God's sake, how would you feel if I went out with your sister and had a 6-month affair with her? How would you feel about that? Darling, I know it was wrong. I'm not defending myself. I see the pain in your eyes. I hurt you, and I'm sorry. But we could put it all behind us. We could go back to the way things were. Just give me a chance, and I will prove it to you. I will do everything to do it for you." Tears rolled down her beautiful cheeks. I took a napkin and wiped her eyes. "Ash, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm just now starting to get my life in order. We should just keep moving forward. No, please, let me show you what you have to lose. We could try again and see if we can make it work. And if not, what do we have to lose?" Leaning back on the sofa, I sighed. "Ash, I can't do this. I really can't." She pounced on me like a tiger on a wounded gazelle, her arms wrapped around my neck, and her lips capturing mine in a deep and passionate kiss. It was frantic and passionate, and it was over in just a few short minutes. All my arguments disappeared, and we lay side by side, with her head on my shoulder. "Look, darling, we can do this. I'll make you forget." I asked with trepidation. "Okay, so how do you think this will work?" Rising up on her elbow, she smiled. "My love, this is what Grant wanted to talk to you about before he died. He wanted you to take the vineyard for yourself. You helped him build it, and you love him. Wouldn't that be ideal?" I was taken aback by her remark and how she brought his name into the conversation. "No, in fact, it would be far from perfect. Grant is dead and buried, and that's what I like. I told you I'd never set foot in that place again, and I well meant it. If you're honest, then this will become our life. I have started to gain a really good clientele, and my consulting business is doing very well. I'm willing to try, but I don't make any promises." She rolled over onto her back, looking at the ceiling. "My love, it was his posthumous wish that you take over everything. This should have been his gift to us. The answer is no. I don't want his money or his house." I could hear her sniffling as she tried to hold back her tears. "You won't even think about it, will you?" "No chance, Ash. If you're serious about trying, then I'm ready. But it will be a new start, a new home, new friends, and new jobs." Morning came too quickly. I loved it when her hot body pressed against me. When I opened my eyes, Ash was no longer asleep, but just lying there, staring at the ceiling. I looked at her and asked, "Well, what have we decided?" She nodded slowly. "Rob, I want this more than anything. I want us to be husband and wife again, and if that means living here, then that's what we'll do. We sealed it with a kiss. I threw back the blankets. Okay, let's go for a walk on the beach. It was a beautiful, bright, sunny morning, and we walked alone along the beach, the waves gently crashing on the shore, serenading us. The weekend passed in an instant. Ash flew back to Otago to collect her things, and I went back to work. She returned on Wednesday with much less luggage than I expected. We have settled into life. It wasn't easy, it was stressful, and we lived on the edge. We were both careful with our choice of words. Ash, although living with me, was still immersed in helping run the vineyard. Glenn wanted nothing to do with it. He was glad when his father left half of him to Ashley. It meant he could continue his studies while leaving everything in her hands. It sounds simple, but it pissed me off. I'm tired of listening to her command over the phone regarding various aspects of vineyard management. I could see that she still had roots there, and it didn't take long for her to start her subtle advertising. The opportunity to take me back there was given by her to Sylvie, whose wedding was approaching. Ashley decided to spend it at the vineyard, which sparked our first argument. When she said this, I shuddered and quickly objected. No way, Ash, this won't happen. Darling, take your time. This will help us save a fortune. We all love this place, especially Sylvie. She loves it. She doesn't know him. She hasn't been there for years, and she hasn't had anything with Saskia. Rob, she came and stayed with Grant and me before he died. She adored him. They were close, and she loves the vineyard. What? I growled. She stayed there with you? With Grant? She nodded slowly, unable to hold my gaze. So, where were you sleeping when she was there? She reached out and grabbed my hand. Honey, she already knew that I slept with Grant. I threw her hand away. Lord, you couldn't humiliate me even more. For sake, Ash, with our daughter under the same roof. Rob, she already knew. There was no point in lying. So what the heck, when I told her, she already knew? Darling, she was just upset. She didn't want us to break up. Still, she was happy to see her mother having sex with another dude. I'll tell you this. The wedding won't happen there. I don't care how much you scream and scream. It won't happen. Rob, you are overreacting. Grant is dead, and the house belongs to us. Us and Glenn. It's free. It'll be fantastic. It doesn't look like it. I told you I would never set foot in this place. I'll start looking for something else. You'll break her heart if you do that. Yes, and so be it. I don't care. Think carefully, Rob. You could lose your daughter forever. Is it worth it? Simply put, the answer is yes. I will not give up. This started her onslaught. First it was sex, and a lot of it was Sylvie trying to make me change my mind with tears and guilt that Ash fueled with sex. When that didn't work, she sided with Sylvie and launched a full frontal attack. But I didn't give up, and slowly but surely Sylvie accepted my reasoning. I think it's also possible that Clive pushed her. We ended up having our wedding in Marlborough Sounds, and it was amazing. Even Ashley couldn't find fault. She tried to pay for it with the money Grant had left, but I angrily refused. And to her credit, Ash didn't try to insist. After the wedding, everything went back to normal, except that I had more work than ever. Ashley became nervous. I guess she thought I would accept her way of thinking and move there. But with my business growing day by day and the amount of work I had organized, she could see her dream disappearing. Eventually, she realized it just wasn't going to happen. We tried. We really tried, but our hearts were never in it. It wasn't the same as before. I think we both even felt the love we shared, but couldn't make it work. She wanted to live on the vineyard, but since her desire affected me, this did not happen. I came home from work late one evening to find her packing her things. When my arrival interrupted her, she whispered, "Sorry, Rob, but this doesn't work." I shrugged. I agree. I think not. She flew out the next day, and I wish I could say I missed her, but the truth was that the tension was gone. I could breathe and not worry about saying the wrong thing. Yes, now I had no sex and intimacy and no warm body to cuddle with at night. I put her out of my mind. She called from time to time, but for all intents and purposes, she was already gone. I focused on the house. I added another design with a huge deck to maximize the ocean views. I took an office assistant who was a single mother who lived up the road and had a 14-year-old son. Her husband ran away 6 years ago and left her with the child, and she was still struggling to cope. She turned out to be a godsend for the office. Although I didn't need her full-time, it was clear that she needed money, so I hired her full-time so she could have an income. When Roisin had to work late, her son Alex spent time at my house, and we developed some relationships. He wasn't, but he had a hard time at school, so when I saw him doing his homework, I started helping him, teaching him. Roisin offered to work overtime for free in exchange for tutoring, but I was just happy to help. Roisin was a very attractive woman, 15 years younger than me, so I didn't see any chance of a romantic relationship and decided there was no way she would be interested in an old like me, especially since I had become a bit of a workaholic. But I was proven wrong, and after she was working late one night and I was helping Alec with some math, I asked if they wanted to stay for dinner. This dinner became a common thing for us. Everyone took turns preparing it. It wasn't an explosion. It was a gradual slide. One evening, Alec was away visiting a friend's house, but Roisin stayed for dinner anyway, and we had a few drinks during dinner, sitting on a sun lounger together, watching the ocean turned into kissing, which led to sex. A wonderful passion-filled session of very hot love-making. Roisin and I became a couple. Clive, my son, was the first to meet her when he and Alicia, his friend, came over for the Queen's birthday weekend. They not only came to visit, but came to announce their engagement. It was a fun weekend. The weather was amazing. Clive and Alicia got on great with Roisin and loved the house. The renovation blew them away. While we were having dinner during the barbecue, Alicia asked, "Can we have a wedding here?" I laughed. "Well, of course. It will be perfect." She hugged me. "Thank you. My parents don't have a lot of money, and I know they are worried about how they will be able to afford to pay for our wedding." "Nonsense, Alicia. It would be an honor for me to play the role of host." Clive hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Dad. Is it okay that Mom will be here?" Ashley was unimpressed when Clive broke the news to her. She tried again and again to force him to have a wedding in the vineyard, offering to pay for everything, but he was firm in his refusal. Once the decision was made, Roisin and Alicia, who were already friends, worked out the details. I wasn't surprised when Ashley called me and asked who Roisin was. When I said she was my girlfriend, she became very quiet and thoughtful before she started complaining. "Rob, she cut me off from everything. I want to help, but every time I talk to Clive, he says that Roisin has already taken care of it. I have nothing to do." "Well then, just relax, come and enjoy." "He's my son, Rob, and I want to help. Just talk to him. Let me help, or pay for something." After promising to talk to Clive, I hung up and felt her pain. The relationship between Clive and Ashley was tense, and I felt sorry for her. When I talked to him, he promised to figure something out. Roisin was more difficult. She was relentless in throwing herself into everything, and was a little taken aback when I asked her to include Ashley. She didn't argue with me, but I could tell she wasn't happy about it. The weekend of the wedding arrived, and Ashley and Sylvie showed up with her husband. They arrived together and lived in the same hotel. It was similar to the battle formations of troops. Roisin, for her part, spent hours preparing for their arrival, and I must say that she looked very sexy. When I introduced them, things were very tense, and the claws were out. It was obvious that they would not be friends, let alone get along. Sylvie, of course, sided with her mother. The peacemaker was Clive and Alicia. Their relationship with Roisin had already strengthened. It was the first evening after Ashley's arrival that gave me some pleasure. I invited her to stay with me, but she decided to get a hotel instead. As I was giving a tour showing off the new expansion and improvements, she walked into the master bedroom. I heard her take a deep breath and wasn't sure if it was the stunning view of the coast or the fact that there were clothes everywhere, mostly underwear, Roisin, and the bed was in order. I saw Ash wince, and her eyes were glued to the sexy black negligee lying on the bed. Yeah, that was definitely not what she wanted to see. Ashley couldn't get out of here fast enough. After the wedding, when Clive and Sylvie left, I arranged for Ashley to come over for dinner. We had a lot to talk about. We had a quick snack on the veranda, and it was a perfect evening. The sun was setting on the... There was no wind, just a gorgeous, pleasant evening. After eating, she stared at me with a cold gaze. "I think it's final. You're not going back to the vineyard, are you? I laughed. No, Ash, and never intended to. I'm sorry about how things turned out. She nodded, but not as much as I regret. Rob, I can't apologize enough for what happened. I know you won't believe me, but I still love you. I still can't imagine my life without you. Before this weekend, I was hoping that you would change your mind, that you would realize that we can still get everything back. We'll just need a lot of love to get it out of our heads. I hoped that we could fall in love again and live out our days in the vineyard. Ash, I still love you. I will always have feelings for you. We had 25 years of shared memories and good times, and they will remain forever. The bad news is that we tried, and it didn't work. Yes, but Rob, we tried here, but this house is not for me. This house is not for us. Why don't we try it in the vineyard if you'll just put aside your anger and move on and let things take their course? Rob, you loved it there and you could do it your way. Imagine if you could make it your own. And that's what Grant wanted. She tried until the end. I laughed. It was so funny. You don't understand, Ash. I don't care about Grant. He was dead to me long before he was laid in the ground. But why can't we try? I moved on. I gave you many chances, Ash. I begged you to come home. You chose him, putting him ahead of me. Now I have a woman, and she means a lot to me. The weekend I went there, if we had gone home, we could have gone through with it. But not now. Rob, it was just 6 months of our lives. We could have spent the rest of it together. We could have grown old together. It wasn't just Ashley. It was a lie. And if I hadn't gone there that weekend, I would never have known. You would have kept me in the dark. I didn't want to hurt you. I was thinking about how to tell you. Grant begged me to confess, but I didn't want to hurt you. Well, you were wrong. Sorry, Ashley, but it's over. I have a letter from Grant. Can I give it to you? Did he want you to read it? Break it up, Ashley. I'll keep it and hope that one day you can forgive us. When you're ready, I'll bring it to you. Keep it with you. I don't need it. I'm sorry for everything, Rob. I love you. A little late, Ash. Good luck in your life.